Welcome back to Long Form Gibberish, Episode 7. So, it's been a while since I published last episode, and I hate starting every episode with, hey, it's been a while. Anyway, I was going to record an episode on Monday, which is still a while, only yesterday, or 2 days ago. But I had such bad freaking allergies, it was ridiculous. Like, I could hardly even, couldn't think, and you get that just cluttered head where your head just pounding and just painful and just it was rough. My snot and saliva and all that just running all the time, and just my nose constantly itched, or not itched, but like just sneezing constantly. And when I was at work, all we had there were toilet paper. Like I just borrowed a roll of toilet paper from the bathroom, a fresh roll, right out of the plastic and everything. Blowing my nose on that, but toilet paper, not very good, not high quality, not for blowing your nose on. It, man, that hurt. My nose was irritated and red all day. Super sucked. So, of course, the next day I bring in actual toilet, actual tissues, and I'm fine. Don't have allergies anymore, which I'd rather that than bring I'd rather not have allergies and have the tissues, but now I have tissues a full box of tissues. I'm out of tissues in my house now, like not out. Like we still have a half box, but got to buy more now. Super inconvenient. But anyway, so I've had a lot of ideas on who to talk to on this podcast, because I really think that's when I'm going to really hit my stride, is when I'm talking and having a discussion with somebody, because it's super difficult to really form a coherent thought while you're when you're just by yourself. Like it's surprisingly hard to keep a good conversation, or a good conversation between me and you just flowing when there's no response from you. Like if I was to get emails and stuff, I think I could really just go off of that, which would be fun. Man, I don't want that to happen. Anyway, or, comments or whatever. So far, I haven't seen any of that, so I'll just have to stand on my own 2 feet like I should have anyway. But I have some ideas on what I want to talk to people about, but I need to sit down, write them out, schedule a time with the person, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun when I do that. Unfortunately, it won't happen still for a while. The one person that I wanted to start with this person, but I don't think I'll be able to, so I'll probably start with somebody else, though I don't know exactly who. I still need to set up a test kind of configuration for a bunch of stuff. Anyway, I don't know. I'm hoping to get some time this weekend to just sit down and write out who I want to talk to, what I want to talk to him about, all this stuff. Like I was mentioning to my brother about this podcast, and none of my family members listen to it. Thank goodness. They'd probably be like, what the frick is this? Weird to just listen to that. They hear me enough as it is. Like I talk a lot, and I'm not annoying. I'm not like, I don't know how this podcast sounds to you, but in person, I swear I'm not annoying. Well, I guess to different, to each their own. I might be annoying to some or most, but anyway, I generally don't get the feeling that like people are annoyed by me there hanging out and talking. Generally, people are laughing, having a good time. I'm not so obnoxiously in your face that you can't talk. And yeah, anyway, I don't have social problems like that. At least I hope I don't. Anyway, I was talking to my brother about this, and he's super into finance, loves it, but he's not very talkative at all. I don't know if I'd be able to get him on this podcast at all, but great guy. And I was talking to him about all the finances stuff he does, and he's trying to find a podcast right now that they go super in depth into stocks, finances, in other investments, and just stuff that you can really dig into, all the, I don't know any of the terms or anything like that, but he was looking to really dig into those. And he had actually mentioned a lot of people that I listen to, a guy by the name of Graham Stephan, which if you haven't looked him up, go look him up or whatever. It's not like this is a shout out or anything. It's not like I have a big enough platform to shout somebody out. Anyway, he's pretty big. I think he's probably got a little bit more than 1 million subscribers. I don't actually know how many subscribers he's got. Anyway, really cool guy. Obviously take everything with a grain of salt, because, if you're listening to anything from anybody, take everything with a grain of salt and just, filter it through your own views and your own, not your own views, I guess, because those should be able to adapt. But, not all of them. Obviously, put it through your own filtration system of what you want to get out of it and how you can use it and all that stuff. Great guy, though. Has a lot of interesting videos, and he's a millionaire in California, which I always find like not disingenuous, because sure, he's a millionaire and he lives kind of the more simple lifestyle of not buying a bunch of stuff, and every now and then he, spends some money, which is fine. You're making you're making millions supposedly, but I find it almost disingenuous. Not quite. Like, he's not disingenuous. He's a legit millionaire, but he lives in California. It's like, not saying it's easy to become a millionaire over there, because I doubt it is, but your money isn't worth nearly as much as somewhere else. You say you go to like Nebraska, Idaho, like Wyoming or something like that, whether you think it's a dumpster fire or not, if you go to those places, your $1 million suddenly can buy you a freaking mansion, where you go to California, $1 million, like, yeah, whatever, you're going to need at least 3 of those to buy a house, it's like, it's so much different that I'm blown away that they don't set stuff up so that they're continually getting money, and then they just leave and go and buy a house somewhere else and just live somewhere else. Because I get it, a lot of those people, they like the California lifestyle, and I wouldn't. I don't like big cities. I'm not, I'm not like suburban redneck type deal, but I'm definitely not in any big cities. And making $1 million and then living in the big city is like, okay, whoop-de-doo. Woohoo, we have so much money that we can hardly spend. I'm sure they could spend it and have fun, but anyway, just the point I'm trying to make is like, I'm surprised they don't move somewhere else. You've made millions, you could go move somewhere else, invest in stuff, invest in local businesses, probably continue to make hundreds of thousands, and then invest, just hundreds of thousands in those local areas. Then you could probably invest your money globally, like the economy we have now, using Robinhood or whatnot, and you could easily make more than that, Maybe not easy. Anyway, point being, I thought about it a lot. Like, I have some skills of like programming. I'm definitely not the best, but I've got some. And I probably, if I wasn't married and I was still a programmer, I could probably go down to California, find some work, and I don't think I'd make millions, but I could definitely make more than the environment I'm in now. And I could move right back here and darn nigh retire in just a year or two probably, or at least have a lot more skills from there. But it's not worth it. Anyway, so see, finance, my brother's trying to find any like really hardcore finance sites. So if anyone has any, if you don't mind leaving a comment about those, I'm just curious, not sites, sorry, podcasts, so you can listen to them and stuff. And he's a great guy, really smart, has a lot of investments, owns some houses and whatnot. He's not like making tons of money, but he's making decent money, he's trying to figure it out. He's playing the game. He's doing the grind like everyone else, just trying to invest that money, which is way cool, way smart. Anytime I'm talking stocks with him, he always has a new stock and whatever, and I look at it and I filter it on my own time to look at the stock, of course, because he's always like, yeah, don't take my advice, look at it for long enough. And generally, it's a decent stock. He sticks to more conservative stocks, ones that are going to give him dividends and that don't, hopefully they trend upwards, but they're not like major, huge jumping differences year to year and stuff like that, which is smart, I think. Obviously, if you want more, high risk, high return, high return, I guess, high reward. Anyway, so he does that whole thing, which is way fun to talk to him about. Like, I get jazzed up about it, even though I don't know nearly as much as he does. But still, so if you know any good, like really in-depth podcasts, I'd love to hear about them. And, maybe I'll pick them up. I doubt it though. It's hard to focus on that kind of thing in the time span that I have to focus on that kind of thing. I usually listen to some podcasts at work, which I can't listen to super in-depth ones because, you're working and I have to pause them a lot. So it takes me longer, and I have like a 10-minute drive to work. So it's not, it's not something that's really feasible. Anyway, so getting off the topic of finances, there's something that I wanted to at least mention here. I don't know how long it'll take me to kind of extrapolate. I don't know how to say that word. Anyway, I don't know how long it'll take me to go through this thought of mine, but I was thinking about the word good. And if you think about it, you can have a good person that's not a great person, right? Because that's the hierarchy of, good, better, great, or whatever. Or I guess just a person, good person, and then great person. But it's not really a step. It's not really a staircase. You don't have to be a good person to be a great person. You can be a great person, but a really terrible person at the same time. Like, both of those things can be true. So, like, not Napoleon Dynamite. Way funny guy. He's probably good and great. Anyway, Napoleon, like, French Napoleon. I don't know his name. So I was thinking of another finance guy, Napoleon Hill. I think he's finance. Might just be motivational speaking. Anyway, don't know Napoleon's last name, but Napoleon, the famously short general, but apparently he wasn't actually that short. Anyway, he was a great person. I don't think he was a very good person, but he was a great person. Like, he made a name for himself. He became great. Like Genghis Khan, he's great, but he's not like a great guy. He's not a good guy. He's not a great guy. He's a great, like, I don't know. It's I'm sure you get what I mean, because it's not hard to wrap your head around this. At least I don't think so. I explained it for like 2 seconds to my wife and she got it, which not saying that she wouldn't have got. Anyway, you know what I mean. You're smart. She got it really quick, like faster than I could even get the thought out, which she does that a lot, which sometimes it's like, well, let me finish my thought before you just say what I mean, which I'm glad that she gets everything. It was like, I'm halfway through my thought, making sure I extrapolate it correctly, however they say that word, making sure that I say it correctly. And then she says what I mean. And, I'd say a good 60 to 70% of the time, she nails it right on the head. Like, you're right, but like, let me finish. All right, come on. But the other 30 to 40% of the time, super annoying. It's like, no, shut up. I'm trying to speak. Gosh darn it. But it's just an interesting thought. You can have most good people, I don't think, end up becoming great people. Because there's a lot of good people in the world, but they're not always, they're obviously not always great people. Now, they're probably great people to, their friends and family, but I'm talking great in the sense of the global, like, they're in the history books type thing, like Elon Musk. Whatever you think about him, whether you think he's smart, dumb, which I don't think anyone could argue that he's dumb. I think he has some points that I don't quite agree with, like his whole, what was it? I think he wants to take the Andrew Yang approach of the freedom dividend, which I think is just ridiculous. But anyway, so I think he's a brilliant guy. Andrew Yang's probably pretty smart, but Elon Musk, he's a brilliant guy, obviously, but I think he definitely has some messed up thoughts where it's like, look, dude, no one's gonna take your, like, no one's gonna vote for a freedom dividend, because you're gonna get the people who voting for it just want free money, where the people not voting for it are saying, no, you'll make more money if you don't have that $1,000 or whatever. Anyway, and that's a whole nother debate I could go into, where I don't know all technical details. I'm not a finance guy. I'm not a politician, so whatever. Anyway, so Elon Musk, great guy, and he's probably good to his, like, friends and family and all this stuff. Like, he seems like a pretty decent dude. He seems good, but he's not like, well, he is great, but he's not, as far as I know, like a good, which I don't know. Oh, maybe that's something I need to talk to people about. Because my question is, if I talk to, like, an atheist or something, like, I believe in God. So if I talk to an atheist and I say, who is a good person? Who are they gonna say? Like, who is an objectively good person? It's like someone you can't, even if you don't agree with their politics or their ideology or their faith or whatever, are they still a good person to other people? Like, not even just atheists and, Muslims and Jews and Christians and Mormons and, no, that's not. Buddhists, I guess. Anyway, so, like, the Dalai Lama, I'd argue that he's a good person. I don't agree with his religious standpoint at all, because I think it's Buddhist. Anyway, don't agree with it. I'm generally, I believe in God and all this stuff. And I know, I don't know exactly what Buddhists believe, but from my research into it, I haven't, I don't believe in it. Granted, I haven't done as much research into it as I want to, not because I want to change my faith, but because I want to strengthen my faith and knowing what else is out there and knowing what they say against mine, so you can have a civil dialogue. Like, oh, okay, you think this way, I think that way, whatever. But I love the idea of talking to somebody and asking them about that. Ooh, that's definitely one that I need to keep on my notes for something to ask people. Because so like Gandhi, he's objectively, I think, a good person and a great person. He happens to be both. Like, the Dalai Lama is so famous. I don't know if he's necessarily a great person all the time. I think he's a good person, but he's not great because he in himself is supposed to be like a reincarnation and stuff. So you never know. And, obviously I don't believe in reincarnation. So then how does someone become great? Well, if his name is supposed to be like reincarnated throughout the generations, how does he become great if it is not him? They're just kind of latching onto that name, at least in my view. So if some Buddhist or whatever, obviously considers him great, okay, so that's definitely an edge case. That one's a hard one to define. But someone like Gandhi, I think he's a great person. And I'd say probably about 98, 99% of people, maybe even 100% of people are going to agree, yes, Gandhi was a great person and a good person. Because great, as in, history knows of him so well. And the things that he did. And, obviously there are people who can be greatly terrible people. But like, I'm using great, I guess, in the sense of like grand scale, most people know about him. Hitler, a greatly terrible person, but he's on that grand scale. Anyway, back to Gandhi. He was obviously, I think, a good person, a greatly good person, or like goodly great. Anyway, he was a great person as well because everyone knows about him. Most people know about him, at least in Western society, I think. I don't know like how many Indians know about him, but I don't know anything about Indian culture. Then, if he's a good person and a great person, would other people who disagreed with his view... Well, I don't know if anyone... Okay, Gandhi's a bad example. There's got to be someone like, George Washington. Somehow he became more polarized. Like he's polarizing people more. I don't get it. He's a freaking founding father, one of the best people to ever live. I think he's objectively, regardless of what you think, he's a good person. He's one of the best people to ever live. Not the best, obviously, but he was one of the best people. He's one of the best people who ever had the chance to live on this earth. He helped create a nation that would last for quite a while, and I think it'll last a good long time. The issues we have now are like, they're sucky, but we'll get over them. I think he's such a great and good person, it's ridiculous. Even the King of England at the time, when he found out that George Washington was just going to like bounce on the whole president thing after 4 years, he's like, yeah, no, I'm done here. The King of England was like, well, man, if he does that, he'll be the greatest person ever. He'll be, I can't remember what his exact quote was, but he basically along the lines of, that will be the greatest person ever, the greatest, good and great, because he did a lot. And obviously people are like, oh, he owned slaves and he didn't fight hard enough to free him. He's fighting for his own freedom. Like, forgive him, forgive me if I'm fighting for my own life before I start saving somebody else's life. That, the slaves needed help at the time. The black people of that time needed help, which is a bummer. It's a bummer that they became slaves, and it wasn't good. But now look at America. You think anyone's making anyone slaves? No, that's freaking ridiculous. There's so much good people in the world. And yet, for some reason, a lot of people think it's okay to like, oh, they owned slaves, they're a terrible person immediately. I'm like, well, I mean, look at how many slaves he owned. Apparently it wasn't a lot. Like, I don't know exactly, I'm not a historian, but from what I do know, the books that I have read on him, he didn't own a lot of slaves. It was actually his wife, because he married a rich widow. She had a ton of slaves. And when he died, he said something along the lines of, again, paraphrasing, I don't know the quote. And honestly, I couldn't even give you a source, which is a bummer. I don't know. I read a book back in high school that had all this stuff out, and I don't know. No, I don't have that book. It was borrowed, I think. Really good book. I don't know where. I don't even know how to find it. But anyway, history book. I'm sure if you look more into his life, you can find it. He basically said something along the lines of like, hey, when I die, when my wife dies, free all our slaves. And then his wife was like, I don't need them now. They're freed now. So they just freed a bunch of slaves. which is probably impressive for the time because you need those slaves to make a living. You know, they might have had money saved up. I don't know what their financial state was, but they were great and good people. Just I don't even think it's a question. For the fact that people are trying to tear down, you know, Washington monuments, or not monuments, but like statues of George Washington, or rename schools that are named after George Washington, is freaking ridiculous. It's, get over yourselves. He was a man that lived forever ago. He kicked butt. He helped, you know, free this country. And even if you think like, oh, he didn't do this or that, or he wasn't that great of this or that, doesn't matter. He's in the annals of history, and he was a good and great person. And I think we're going to have to start making that distinction more and more nowadays, the good and great. But anyway, he was such a good person that he took this power of being the president, the first president. He could have easily said, because, you know, he was the only president to have a unanimous vote for him to become president. There was another person that came close, supposedly, but then one person dissented and went against him just because he wanted George Washington to be the only one with a unanimous vote, which I think is brilliant. You know, it sucks for the other guy, but I don't think the other guy should get any less credit for it. It's like, look, you came darn close. So apparently it was like you know, you were 90% of the way there. You just needed that one guy, if there's 10. But anyway, I think that's freaking awesome that guy, I can't remember who he was, which is a bummer. You know, you think I didn't even know for the longest time that George Washington was unanimously voted in. That's way cool. You think you can't do that nowadays. There's no unanimous voting taking place, anything nowadays, other than like, you know, probably local, super local, state, or city, county, whatever. Because then at that point, it's like, I'm sure you got who's fighting, who's running against who, probably no one against no one, you know, unanimous vote to no one. Who cares? And, you know, I'm sure the county cares, or the local people care, but it's just, I'm so stunned every time I see something about George Washington was a bad guy or this or that. It's like, he was maybe a product of his times. Sure, he wasn't perfect. No one is. I dare you to find someone perfect other than, you know, Jesus, if you believe in him and his word and his teaching and all that stuff. Supposedly, I remember hearing somewhere, I haven't looked into it super far because I believe that he was a real person, and I believe that he was, you know, our savior and all that. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with all that. If you want to talk religion, I'd love to, but I'm sure you could talk to someone more knowledgeable than me, who is more well-versed in all these teachings. Anyway, supposedly they found that Jesus was a real person at the time, which is cool, you know? Like, you definitely want to have that knowledge of, I guess, he at least existed, because if you somehow figured out that he never existed, well, that's kind of throws a wrench in our, you know, in Christians' ideology. Obviously, I think he existed before they confirmed that he did, but it's cool that they confirmed that. And again, I can't cite any sources. This is just something I heard offhand from one person. And I didn't look into it further because I don't really care. I mean, I care if he existed. Obviously, if they somehow proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he didn't exist, then maybe I'd question stuff. But I don't think they could prove that, you know? Which obviously he was the greatest and the goodest person. I know goodest isn't a word. I don't think it's anyway, doesn't matter. It's like, what is it? Funner? It's not a word. But who cares? Everyone uses it anyway, so, you know, get over yourself. Not everyone. Obviously, there's a lot of people who don't. But anyway, so Jesus, greatest person to ever live, and the goodest person, the most good person. That makes more sense. Anyway, the most good person to ever live, the greatest person to ever live, and supposedly we have proof now that he lived. Again, I haven't looked into it. And, you know, even if you don't believe in his teachings, or like in the religion around him, I think you should still study him, because he obviously changed so much of the world that you should study a person who changes that much of the world. It's foolish not to. And then people are, you know, some people might say, oh, well, you need to study, I forget who was it? I don't even know the name, the Muslim guys. And you're right. I do plan on studying them soon, hopefully. I want to study and find out what they did, why they did what they did, what the information we have on them is, and what happened to them and why they, all that stuff. Yes, I agree 100%. I don't think you can have a full understanding of your religion if you don't even question your religion with anything. Like if you're just like, look, I just believe in Christ, but I don't look into it. Well, then that's negligence. You're negligent and you're not trying. I think if he's going to save your soul, you got to at least try and, put your best foot forward and listen, at least, download a free audiobook and listen to the Bible, come on. And I know a lot of people who've never even tried that, especially a lot of my family members who've never even read the Bible, never even thought about reading the Bible. And it's just, look, you profess and you claim to believe in this religion. Like they've read the Book of Mormon, because I live in Utah, so a lot of my family members are quote unquote Mormons, where they don't actually go to church or anything because their family was kicked out because of polygamy and blah 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 blah. Not all, a small portion of them still live polygamy nowadays, but and obviously all of them are consenting adults. I don't want to say anything bad about the people that are living polygamy. They're all consenting adults. They all made that decision. Move on, get over with your life. I don't think it's the way to go. Yada yada. But if you're going to do it, you got to be consenting adults, I think. And obviously legally you can't ever do it, but legally you can't do a lot of stuff, which is stupid. So yeah, at least read the Bible. Like I can't believe how much of my family, when I did read the Bible and I talked to them, like, why don't you look at this way? And they were like, well, I don't really know, blah, 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 and they just made up a bunch of excuses. Like, wait, you haven't read it, have you? And I've never really asked them straight up that question, because they've probably glanced through it, but they went in it knowing they wouldn't believe it. They went into reading the Bible with their blinders up. They weren't going to look, they weren't going to try. It's like, okay, that's one way to look at it. And at least do that, because again, very few of my family members have done that. And at least when you do that, you can at least get a sense for, okay, they believe it because of this. I don't believe it because of this, blah, blah, blah. But then you can at least form a discussion and have, when you're creating a discussion or an argument or a debate against somebody, you want to know the opponent's side. Like you definitely want to know their side. Like you can't, you're not going to win any arguments, any discussions, any debates, anything if you don't know the opponent's side. If you don't know where they're coming from, how can you even have a decent conversation with them? Like if you can't put yourself in their shoes, what are you going to get? Anyway, it's baffling to me that they never read it. They never even made the effort. I don't want to say never, because it's possible they could have glanced at it when they were younger or something like that and just never gotten to it. Blah blah blah. But I know a lot of them who profess to be really religious. Like they'll tell you straight up, like, "Oh, I'm really religious." Like, okay, what books have you read on religion that are actually considered religious text? A lot of them will say, like, "Oh, I read this one by so and so, who's a really religious and thoughtful person." Like, okay, so you read somebody's thoughts on religion. Okay, what are your thoughts on religion? Do you have any that aren't theirs, that aren't that person's thoughts on religion? If not, that's your choice, whatever. But you should at least read the original text where that guy's getting his thoughts. Like, I think it's great to read other books and find out what kind of thoughts they're having on it, but at least read your own, read a book where they got their thoughts from. It's like I listen to Jordan Peterson a lot, and he constantly talks about like the Gulag Archipelago and stuff. So I went out, found it, read it, and I absolutely think everyone should read it. It's a fantastic book, but I didn't just take Jordan Peterson's word for it, and you shouldn't take my word for it. If you have a strong enough belief, you can listen to a book and decide whether to believe it or not to believe it. It's up to you, because you have that freedom. You can do whatever you want. Anyway, going off of that, like, so say, like back in high school, when just a few years ago, I'm not that old yet. So in high school, we had to research a topic, and we had to research the both ends of it, the for and the against sides of it. So I took that time and I researched the crap out of, and we had to choose a topic. So my group chose flat Earth or something. And this is before it really got big. Like it was still really small. And I researched the crap out of it because I was a studious person back in high school. So I read all the material I could. I found all the for and against, and I came out of it obviously being like, well, this is ridiculous. It's a freaking globe. you're just denying what we know to be true. And you can, anyway, I don't want to get in that whole debate, but I have a better grasp of where they're coming from, because a lot of those arguments are pretty convincing until you really look into the globe argument. Some of that argument's relatively convincing. I can see where they get that. I can put myself in their shoes and go, okay, I don't agree with you or in how you got this, but I can see that I can see how you could. So that helped me to debate and discuss on flat Earth. Granted, it became a whole different argument when I got into more religious areas of my life, and some of my religious friends were like, "Oh yeah, the Earth's flat," and I was like, "It's not though." And then they'd quote something from the Bible that I hadn't heard, but I don't know enough to debate them on it and go, I don't remember that text. You're gonna have to give me details. And they're like, "Oh, later," but we're kind of hanging out and just having a good time. No one's angry at anyone, but anyway, I'm obviously against flat Earth. I think it's ridiculous. And people who say, well, the Bible says that the Earth is flat. Like, okay, so say the Bible says the Earth is flat, and you go up into a spaceship, and you, for legitsies, you see that the Earth is a globe. Then does that mean that the Bible's false? Or was your interpretation of the Bible wrong? Because my interpretation of the Bible, not my interpretation, when I read the Bible, I don't get that the Earth's flat from it. I haven't seen it once. I'm almost through everything. I'm down to Esther right now in the Old Testament. I haven't read through the New Testament yet, but I'm in Esther in the Old Testament, and so far hasn't stuck to me. And and there could be sections, obviously, in the Old Testament that people are like, oh, right here it says the four corners of the earth. Well, that's a metaphor. Anyway. There's tons of arguments for flat Earth and tons of arguments against flat Earth. I think against obviously has higher standing, because the people arguing for flat Earth, they really got to prove themselves. Like for a good long time now, people have known and thought that the Earth is a globe. So now if the flat Earthers want to quote unquote prove that it's not a globe, then it's up to them to really prove it, okay? And you got to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, because we have very good pictures from satellites. I don't know how you're gonna, like a lot of them are like, oh, NASA's lying to you and stuff. Oh, whatever. Get over yourself. You think Elon Musk shoots a freaking car up into space, takes pictures of the globe and doesn't show you it's legit? He's not a private company, but still, he's not run by the government. And then we used to have that satellite. I don't know if you can still go onto it, but there used to be a satellite that you could go and look at a live feed. Sure, they could be doctoring that too. Well, they could be doctoring your house. You don't know what it really looks like. Frick, if you're going to get so into detailed with what they can do, and I don't think they can do all that stuff. The arguments just don't hold up to scrutiny at all. Anyway, I went way off topic, which I don't feel bad about, but I went quite a while off because it does grinds my gears, because when you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh, I didn't really like this person because they thought the Earth was flat. It's like, frick, that person's like one of my best friends and they think the Earth's flat, which is a bummer. And, I've talked to them personally about it, but they think the Earth's flat, which is sucky. And then other people, they don't think as highly of them anymore. Like one of these people that believes the Earth's flat, once I have my kid, if they are willing, they are going to be the, was the godfather? Yeah, they will be the godfather of my child. And that's what it is. They're going to be if I die, my children go to them. They don't go to my parents, who have a great and stable and fantastic loving relationship. They don't go to my wife's parents, because we've already talked about this. And they have a great, stable, loving relationship. They go to my friends that believe the Earth is flat. Not because they believe the Earth is flat. Believe me, that was definitely taken into consideration, like, ugh, dang it. But it goes to them because I respect them. They are my dearest friends, and they are good people. They're not great people. They haven't made a name for themselves. And I don't know if they even want that, so I don't know if they ever will, but they could. But they are good people. They are genuinely good people. And that's who my children will go to if I were to die. And if my wife were to die, which would, heaven forbid for sure, but they would go to them even though they believe the Earth's flat. Because, they can have that one difference, but you can still come together and like, hey, look, you're still a good person. You might believe arbitrarily that the Earth's flat. Okay, whoop-de-doo. I don't see how that changes your day-to-day. Unless you're walking around and being like, oh, gravity doesn't exist, and then somehow it doesn't exist for you. That doesn't work. Gravity still exists. Anyway, I digress. I'm going on a bit too long about the flat earth thing, but again, you know me, I can gibberish my way into any corner and out of any corner into a big, I don't know if the corners get any big. Anyway, into a tighter corner. Just saying. So this has been Long Form Gibberish, episode 7. If you want to email me, my email will be longformgibberish@gmail.com. longformgibberish@gmail.com. Please, feel free to like, comment, follow, subscribe, or whatever the heck it is that you're listening to this on. Have a wonderful day.